You guys ever wonder what it looks like when the destitute and addicted son of a president shows up to court to sign his fancy plea bargain that could really only be explained by white privilege and corruption after getting his child support amended for the little girl that he and his dad refused to acknowledge because he's apparently broke? Well, this is what true oppression, true difficulty in life really looks like.
Now, I lost my family. I lost my kids. I want my daughter back. I want my freedom back. You took that from me, but where is the transparency? Where's the equality at? Hunter, you was getting high on one side with a lot of people. You was south. You was getting high. And you want to see my face, y'all are gang stalking. But I want to petition in to stop gang stalking. If anything happened to me, y'all get it. And I'm telling. And y'all can look up my lawsuits. Newman versus the Biden administration. Newman versus Dr. Fauci. Newman versus all of you. I lost everything. Where is the transparency? A gun charge in Wilmington, in my neighborhood. But we're hurting.
Hey there, guys. So we've covered this a few times, and anyone watching is probably well aware, but for those in the back, those who really haven't been paying attention, Hunter Biden walked into court on Wednesday morning totally believing that he was there to walk in, nod, and seal the plea deal that his lawyers had supposedly hashed out with the Department of Justice. All done, of course, with absolutely no influence from either Joe Biden or Merrick Garland. Completely and totally independent, of course. And he, Hunter Biden, like the rest of us, really believed that the government was going to just turn his serious tax violations into a pair of misdemeanors after he neglected or refused to pay basically millions of dollars in taxes that he owed to the federal government. Plus, there was also, the diversion agreement for his gun-related felony charges. He was a prohibited possessor. And this, if you ask me, this is the most troubling thing. And I think, rumors have it that it was the most troubling thing for the judge as well. I guess she had just sentenced the guy to 5 years for basically the very, very same thing. And anyway, whatever made her pause and whatever made the prosecution balk, we don't entirely know yet. And we may never know exactly. Well, we're going to find out, actually. They're going to look at this one pretty good. But instead of signing the super deal, he ended up pleading not guilty and leaving pretty upset.
Yeah, Harris, I can confirm that this plea deal may be falling apart before our eyes. I've been here reporting outside. Our producer, Jake Gibson, is inside. There's no electronics. There's no cameras. And finally, I said, look, it's been over an hour and a half. Let's see what's going on. I just left the courtroom seconds ago. They're in recess at the moment. Here's what's transpired. The Judge Noriega basically began by asking questions about the plea deal itself, about whether or not the pleading guilty to 2 tax demeanors could be tied to the diversion part, which is avoiding charges, which is a felony on the gun charge. And there was disagreement in that. But the major headline that's transpired in this courtroom that is likely going to be what we're talking about for the rest of the day is Judge Noriega asked the prosecution if there was an ongoing existing separate investigation into Hunter Biden right now. The prosecutor saying yes. And what was holding this deal up, and they're in recess now because the defense asked for some time, so the judge granted. What's up in the air is whether or not Judge Noriega will even accept this deal, because this deal would possibly give Hunter some immunity to future charges, and she's not okay with that.
So yeah, it turns out that there were at least a few cross wires between the federal prosecutors and Hunter Biden's lawyers. The same Hunter Biden lawyers that actually called up and tried to fraudulently trick the court just the night before. And we did a video on that. You guys, if you haven't heard that story, it's insane. Anyway, so the prosecution and the defense, they actually kind of got into a little bit in court. And apparently, according to the people that were allowed in the court, things got a bit loud. I'm definitely generally not a big court TV guy, but I would have absolutely freaking loved to have seen this. And Hunter Biden, knowing how much he loves to document his travels, I'm sure that he would have allowed it. He might have actually recorded it himself. I don't know. But anyway, so apparently the problem was that Biden and his lawyers, they believed that the gun charge and the tax misdemeanors were kind of tied together, that one depended on the other. But according to the judge, that's not the case. The judge also questioned whether the diversionary agreement really protected Hunter Biden from any future legal troubles under other laws and other crimes that he might have committed, including the FARA stuff, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, that we all know applies. Everyone who's paying attention knows that's exactly, at the very, very minimum, that happened. And the strange thing about the judge asking these questions was this. As soon as the judge starts asking questions, both sides started to act super sketchy. In fact, the prosecution, they wanted to tell the judge even less than defense did. And at first, so the prosecutors, they acted pretty coy about any other potential investigations that they were working on. And I don't know if that was because they didn't want to talk about it in front of the defense, or I don't know, because they're really not working on them. I don't know what the story is, but they didn't want to talk about it. They eventually admitted there are other investigations in the pipeline on Hunter Biden. And then the judge pressed, started asking questions about Biden's business dealings in both Ukraine and China, while his dad, Joe Biden, was the vice president. And the judge specifically asked, is there an investigation going on for violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act? And which you guys know probably, but if you don't, that's about failing to register correctly while you're conducting business for a foreign entity, foreign business that could influence American policy. Anyway, so depending on the seriousness of the violation, it's either a felony carrying up to 5 years in prison, or it's a misdemeanor and it's 6 months. Ironically, this is the same charge that the media is using to slander Biden whistleblower Dr. Gal Luft, who we did a really good video on. Check that out because you've got to hear this guy's story. Anyway, so he's been indicted for FARA violations in China. And of course, the media, because it says foreign agent in the name, and they either are purposely misleading or really that stupid, they're alleging that he's a Chinese spy who can't be taken as credible when it comes to the alleged wrongdoings of the Bidens in China. And my response to that is, A, he's not a spy. That's not what FARA is. And B, say he is. Who else would you expect to be involved with shady Biden deals in a communist country? Some sort of freaking golden boy, church deacon, or a guy who's into shady stuff himself? Come on, man. Anyway, so the Hunter Biden stuff, I got to stay on track. So the prosecutors finally admitted, yes, there's an investigation underway, and that set Biden's team completely off. They were pissed. Looking, they thought they were off the hook, or at least they sold it to their client, like they're off the hook for everything after this plea deal. Which personally, I'm sort of surprised that they lost it like that. If I were them, I would have assumed that the prosecution just kind of had to say that for the record. As shady as everything else has been, why would the future look any less shady? I don't know. But anyway, it spooked them for sure. It spooked them. But that really wasn't the only problem anyway. So the judge had issues actually with the gun deal itself, with the constitutionality of the gun deal, feeling that it literally would put the court in an awkward position of having to decide whether Hunter Biden had broken that deal. Meaning they're the ones who have to decide if he goes to prison or not, which in her view isn't the court's job. In fact, it isn't the court's job. So it should be the executive branch that actually brings charges. So she voiced her concern that the constitutionality of the plea agreement was at least up for debate. And she allegedly even asked the prosecution if this had ever been done before. Had the diversion on one of the most serious gun felonies ever been done before? And the prosecution had to tell her that they did not think that it had. And guys, that right there, to all of our friends, show this to your liberal friends, to all of our friends who really do believe that this deal, in this case, is completely normal, that there's nothing special or preferential here. Guys, a plea like this for a charge like that has never, ever been done before. Our government has 23,000 pages containing 3,000 different laws that they can charge anyone with at any time, anywhere. There are literally 6 million people right now on federal probation or in federal prison. And this deal was brand new. After all that, this is brand new. Never been done before, and it was done for the president's son. So please, please be intellectually honest with yourself enough to just realize that this is indeed the most preferential of preferential treatments possible. And anyway, given all this, the judge, she wanted more time to really, really figure out what was going on. And after some back and forth, both sides, they came back with a revised deal, but the judge still wasn't happy, still wasn't having it. What she ended up doing was giving them another 30 days. So Hunter Biden, instead of pleading guilty to some misdemeanors and getting basically time served, he pled not guilty, at least for now, while they work it all out. And the funny part, while this entire thing was happening, CNN was having a complete and total freaking meltdown over the plea deal going sideways. You got to take a look at this. But guys, before we do, thanks to everyone that's been subscribing and leaving the positive comments. We really, really appreciate the support. And if you haven't already, please help us with the algorithm. so we can grow and get our message out to as many people as possible. Like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share the channel. Every time you do, a leftist will lose their wings, I promise. So have a look at this.
Someone made a bad mistake here. Am I wrong looking at this, saying that these someone, whether it be Hunter Biden's defense or prosecutors here,
how could there be such
apart?
a big miscommunication?
I cannot even begin to explain how the Justice Department walks into that courtroom without knowing exactly what the scope of immunity or coverage is for Hunter Biden. And equally, I cannot even begin to understand how Hunter Biden's lawyers walk him into that courthouse without knowing exactly what the constraints, what the limitations of that deal are. Here, what happened here today is remarkably rare and frankly sort of astonishing that the parties would go into court on a matter of this degree of importance without a full agreement in place. And as Kara just said, the problem was not with what Hunter Biden had agreed to plead guilty to. There was no question about that. They agreed he'd plead guilty to the 2 tax misdemeanors and then have the gun charge diverted or essentially thrown out if he complied. The problem was the parties did not see eye to eye. They did not have an agreement about what else beyond that Hunter Biden was covered for. I cannot even begin to explain how the parties did not have that locked in place before they headed into court, but they didn't, and that's why the judge rejected it.
So she gave them 30 days. What happens next, Ellie?
So one of two things. Either they reach an actual agreement as to the entire scope of this plea deal, in which case the judge seems likely to approve it, as often happens in the normal course. And if not, then this could head to trial. And when I say head to trial, I mean the tax charges. I also mean that gun charge, which could carry jail time, plus potentially all of that other pending material that the judge alluded to today. So there's a lot of risk for Hunter Biden here if they don't get a deal done.
So this is pretty much the worst case disaster scenario for the Bidens and for federal prosecutors. And honestly, it worked out just the way that I had hoped, not because I really care about Hunter Biden or, want him to personally suffer. No one cares about Hunter Biden, honestly. It's because I just don't think it's right. You can't have a statute that has jailed thousands of people, most of them not white, by the way, and then turn around and give a once-in-a-lifetime, never-been-done-before deal to one guy, a white guy. And then, of course, the media never even mentions the word white privilege. The media has no problem with it. A president's son got a once-in-a-lifetime, never-been-done-before deal, and no one cares. Not one member of the media, not one politician, not one woke revolutionary even muttered the words white privilege. Tells you about everything you need to know about their actual belief in that even existing. But anyway, so this is the outcome that I wanted. But I was incredibly convinced, like I'm sure a lot of you were, that it wouldn't happen. This is not the movies. This is real life. And the bad guys always win, man. And obviously they still can. And they still, of course, probably will. But now we get a better, deeper look at it while it happens. And we get to really, really see what our government is doing. And basically, what it came down to was a Trump-appointed judge, who's actually a Democrat, by the way, rightfully questioning the constitutionality of the plea agreement and also the scope. The scope of the deal was really, really important to her. What else was really covered? What else she was asking, are they giving the Bidens, or specifically Hunter, a free pass for? And what about the FARA violations, the FARA charges? I'm sure Paul Manafort is watching that one pretty closely. Anyway, that's what they got him for. But anyway, this was really a sneaky way, I think, for the government to, introduce something that would maybe give the Bidens a double jeopardy claim. Or, did they have real questions about immunity? I don't know. Did they have real conversations about it? Because Hunter Biden, his lawyers, they were of the belief that their client had some sort of blanket immunity. And obviously, Hunter Biden, he should have registered as a foreign agent. The Department of Justice, they weren't exactly transparent about whether this deal covered that. But Hunter Biden's team, they thought that it did. And really, let me know in the comments, why do you guys think that he didn't register? Do you think that he thought registering would start too many questions about why the, sitting vice president's son is acting on the behalf of foreign entities and foreign nations? And here's, I want to know that, Anyway, here's a pretty amazing clip I want to show you of Kash Patel and Benny Johnson discussing the whole scenario. They go into pretty good details about what the relationship really looks like between the Department of Justice and the Bidens. They talk about how the DOJ and Biden's team really are trying to get Hunter out of this mess together in the sneakiest, really probably the most sleaziest way possible. And if you guys don't follow Kash Patel, you really should. Look this guy up. He's an absolute freaking genius. Take a look at this.
Okay, so look, I've been a federal public defender. I've been a national security prosecutor. I've been on both sides of the aisle, literally in federal court before tons of federal judges. And a federal judge has the authority not to enter into plea negotiations. And what this judge did, rightfully so, was question the DOJ if there are other criminal conduct related to the plea agreement. She's allowed to do that, or he. And I was not stunned by DOJ's answers, but the specificity that she went to FARA tells me she knew in the discovery process of this case that that issue had come up. And if that issue was going to be legally precluded from being prosecuted in the future, she as the jurist has the responsibility to demand that answer from the DOJ. And it looks like Hunter Biden's lawyers thought that the FARA registration, which they can't get a deferral on, which he has to go to federal prison on, which is a felony, they thought they had negotiated their way out of it. And it looks as if they just canned the plea agreement because having been over there on the defense side, you quietly know when you've lost. And they lost on the FARA point is my first reaction, which to me tells me the DOJ tried to bury the FARA conviction.
Wow. Can you please explain this acronym FARA and what this may mean if they decided, if I'm hearing you correctly, that they are going to push forward with prosecution for Foreign Agent Registration Act?
Yeah, exactly. So FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act, very simply means if you're a U.S. citizen, you can work for whoever you want. But if you work for another country in Europe, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, wherever, and you lobby the U.S. government, Congress, White House, whatever, be like, oh, I got, this amazing company who wants to do a deal in the United States. You can do it. You get paid billions of dollars to do it. But the law just says you have to register. You have to put the government on notice, and it doesn't cost you anything. It just says file a piece of paper. It's literally like one page. And it just says, here, I'm registered. You, DOJ, are aware of it. Track it all you want. That's it. If you fail to register and you lobby a foreign government, say you go to the Ukrainians, say you go to the Chinese, and you say, my daddy is going to get you all the private equity deals you want, or my daddy's going to get you a federal prosecutor fired in your home country, then we'll get you the $1 billion. He never registered to do those representative works on behalf of those countries in America. And just look what happened to Paul, Trump's former one of his campaign managers.
Yep.
Manafort. He failed to register as a FAR agent. Now, look, DOJ has had an awful track record of prosecuting these people because so many people in government leave and do this conduct and they don't register, which I don't know why. I think they're just trying to be shady, like Hunter Biden. And now this judge is like, so we're just going to decide what laws to not prosecute. I mean, it's pretty keen. It's pretty savvy. Look, the reality is the deal could come back. It's dead for now. And prosecutors have a premonition of going in there and being like, it's our way or the highway. But we all know who they work for: Merrick Garland, Christopher Wray, Daddy, Joe Biden. So they could go back and loop in a FARA plea agreement, but I'm not sure that's going to work in this case, given this explosive rejection by both sides saying the plea deal's off.
Yeah, so let's sum it up, man. The sweet plea deal that Hunter Biden thought that he was getting is on pause, at least for now. And it's all thanks to one judge who rightly questioned its constitutionality and whether Hunter was basically getting a free pass for any and all future charges and crimes related to his business dealings. So Hunter Biden and the prosecutors, they're going to get back to negotiating and figuring out how to structure a deal that the judge will actually accept. And if she still isn't buying it, then, we obviously could be looking at some sort of trial, where Hunter Biden might actually end up facing some real jail time on the gun charge alone. If it comes to that, that is definitely the worst case scenario for them. Really, the best part about all this going on, the way that it is that we get to keep watching channels like CNN and MSNBC have their mushy little meltdowns. And literally, we get to watch in real time as they pollute the minds of these poor, mushy brain Democrats that watch them. They really have never even been given this information in the first place. They'll continue to downplay the situation, even though it's clear, there's a lot more going on that needs to be covered. And slowly, the longer it goes on, like this upcoming impeachment thing, they will be forced to cover more of it. And as of now, Hunter Biden, he's pled not guilty. And here's the interesting thing about that. So now that he's actually on the record and legitimately arraigned on these charges, it makes it very, very difficult for the government to actually just dismiss them, which I'm sure that they would love to. In the case that they do, the judge could actually demand that they try the case. Super interesting stuff, and this will be fun to watch. Should be pretty enjoyable to watch too. But anyway, guys, that's just my take. Let me know yours in the comments. And don't forget, please like, subscribe, and most importantly, share the Common Sense Garage. We'll see you in the next one.